Very nice. All right then. So
Hold on.
okay, so can you see the screen?
Yep.
Very good, very good. All right then. Let me quickly recap where we are at. So here we have the map of Meru. It's a bit rough, as you can see. This is not how it's going to look like. And what I want to do is I want to look a bit at different points of interest. So we had a conversation with Alex, who you guys know as the head of games, and we had we essentially, for the region expansion, to be able to play the tabletop RPG in this region, we need to kind of like figure out what the points of interest are, like what are the couple of bigger regions that like suggest action potential, if that makes sense, you know. So
Okay.
yeah, and so I've had share with you, like there's a bit of a list of general region ideas that came to mind, and so I kind of wanted to share with you a couple of initial thoughts and see if any of that kind of like sparked your imagination, and see if I can get some more inspiration from
Can I ask a couple of questions first?
Sure.
Friday's tabletop RPG is set in Gadland, which, if I can see well, is on the top left. Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that I could read that correctly. And the second question I had is, what's with all these duties? West Held duty, hard duty, shore reach duty.
Yeah. So duty is essentially it's like canton or like county or something. You know?
Okay.
So each of these is one. So this here is the West Held duty. It's kind of a rougher out there area. It's kind of doesn't have a lot of big towns. We have the hard duty, which has lots of towns. It's the most populated region, but also the smallest. It has lots of history. It's the place where, in the age of resettlement, people eventually landed. The golden duty is the like big rolling fields, hills with like orchards and all this kind of stuff. It's kind of also grain production, so kind of the breadbasket at the center of the country. And then you have the zenith duty up here, which is a deep jungle. That is a deep mountainous jungle. That is like home to a couple of secluded mage orders and some wood production in this valley, and a jungle road that crosses up here and is the only way to get goods and people from Meru to Tarina, which is up here. Then we have the Passiva duty, which I'm still developing the idea of, but I think it's going to be the HQ of the Hells. It's going to be here. And then we have the Shore Reach duty, which is named for its long shore, but the really important part is the lower shore reach, which is this area here, which I marked in this orange box. It's because here's the border. You can see this red line. And down here, you can see all these little names here. These are the dukedoms. So each name is like its own duchy or like region, let's say.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's like we have some towns here that were initially constructed when, let's say, the borders weren't problematic, let's say. And because of the river, you know, like goods and all that could be transported quite easily down the river here. It created a natural barrier, and it made a natural like place for the duty to end and another duty to begin. And in the time of the Immortal Kingdom, this place here was, you know, like civilized. But then, after the Little Doom, like roughly 100 years ago, all of this turned into the dukedoms, and ever since this has been a big problem for Meru, because Meru stabilized, but the dukedoms didn't, or at least largely. And so,
I think when I played the Involunteers tabletop RPG, the first part of that game was crossing into Moru, actually.
Yes, yeah. Like you would have gone here from Rotland, which I think you recognize.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so you would have probably traveled along the river and then crossed off here, and went through the aptly named Deadman Street, or like try to sneak through the border, which has its own kinds of dangers, and then get in here. Here's Terra near the river, so you can drive a boat and get to Elonat, for example. Yeah. And also, like this chunk here of land is certainly going to be a point of interest because it's you have shipments coming up the river from here. You have a lot of pressure coming from inside the dukedoms, but you also have no trade routes going through this whole block up here. Like this whole thing here is no trade route territory, which means that if you want to get anything into Moru from, for example, Haroniru, you have to go through here and then go.
I see.
Dotted line here. So
is that because of the mountains, or
Yeah,
is there some other danger?
No, the mountains really. The mountains are very difficult to fly through. They are relatively high, and there is like the weather conditions are such that there's almost always pretty dense clouds forming around them. And so the visibility is really difficult, and the terrain is very dangerous, and so people just usually don't do it.
Okay,
So
understood.
trade routes go around. No. Yeah. So I had a couple of ideas. I like Moru, to my mind, is a bit of a cozy region. Like there is a bunch of dangers, right? Like the border, there's some beasts in the jungle, there's some secrets around the mage orders, there's the hells are going into the haunting caves, and the Steinhansa here is like pirateering a lot across the coast. But I think it's like if you don't want to be in trouble, you don't need to be in trouble kind of region, you know? Whilst other regions like the dukedom, the dukedoms, for example, or Estodia is like, they don't let go of you, you know? Like when you're in, and then you need to deal with it.
But does Moru have an army or a navy, or
Yes,
are they like pacifists?
No, they do have basic defense. It's nothing super crazy or something. Like they are not a superpower or something, but they have like a solid police force. And so the country itself, like the people and the cultures, there's a high trust, right? They get along. They have a good, like, cohesive narrative for who they are as a people and as a country. And they had some good luck around, like when the Little Doom happened, the country split off, and the way that they stabilized with elections around their new system of governance worked out really well. And so there's like a high trust, like real world examples, like think Denmark or Norway, you know. So it's like everybody's kind of like leaves the door unlocked and is chill, you know. Yeah, not everywhere in Denmark.
Yeah, I got you.
You get really good at this. And so so that's kind of, and so I think in a way the heart of this is partially Elonat, and this the hard duty. You can get yourself in trouble, you know, but you have to try. But really, like the Golden Orchard duty to me is kind of like the big bulk in the middle of the country. That's like rolling fields,
The
like
Shire.
wanderers. Yeah, it's pretty much. But like, it has a. I need a better name for this than Chilltown. I say it's like a place that's like very. It's on the river. I imagined it a bit like you know, these trees, how they're called, the trees that have these leaves that hang over
the
them.
weeping willows.
Weeping willows and all this kind of stuff, like around the little, like the waters and the lakes and some of the old like chateaus with like wooden beams and shit. So it's very and historically it's been also the place where a lot of known poets would come from or would meet, and so it's like a very like tranquil, cultured place, and so I think it can be kind of a nice. Also, I don't know if it should be, but like it could, for example, for some one shots also be a very nice starting point, and then from there, because also this is kind of like a hub, because from there you can then decide where do we go, Do we
Why
go
not
to
call the place Tranquility then? Or
I think it's too on the nose. I guess it's
well,
not going to be chill.
Chill
That's for sure.
Town.
No. Like, don't, like, no, it's not going to be chill. No, this is just in air quotes.
Yeah, placeholder.
No, yes, everything is going to get proper names. Like, no worries. Yeah, it's like, it's not going to call it Chill Town and Wood Town and Jungle Road. It's just for us to wrap our heads. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. So this was kind of the idea, and you can like probably if you want to get yourself in trouble, like you probably like this is level 1, and then you would go to Elunat into the hard duty, which is not far, like you don't need to have like a big travel. And then here you get to level 2 of like where you find out about whatever that grieves you essentially, that you want to deal with. And then I think it can either lead you here or here. And I mean, technically you could also take the river back and go into the Zenith duty, but I think it's not as elegant. And I mean, we're not making this technically as an open world game, so it's like it's a tabletop RPG theater of the mind. But Willowbrook, yeah. I'll put this down at the end.
When you mentioned the Weeping Willow, I thought, okay,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Could be cool. Sure. Yeah. So, do you guys have any thoughts on the Golden Orchard duty? Like anything
But
that
if
you
this
would?
if this is like the breadbasket of the country, is it? So hold on, correct me if I'm wrong. Breadbasket of the country or of the region?
Of the country, I would even go as far as to say of the shore, like because here not a lot is growing, and here not a lot is growing in like stable conditions that is then not also consumed. So if like there's lots of exports going into the coasts and lots of exports going up the coast and into Valano. So I think it would be like actually a major export, not just feeding themselves, but everybody.
Okay, so this is a substantial part of their economy then as a country.
Yeah. Economically substantial export. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And that's why it's the most populous part of Moru, right?
Yeah. I wonder, why, what might have led to Elunat not being the town that's at the mouth of the river, but sits next to it,
Oh, maybe the fact that it wasn't on the mouth of the river made it less of a target, so it was able to grow faster.
Interesting. I mean, and it's not far away, right? Like if you're already traveling a river with a boat, you might as well just take a 2-hour trip down the coast. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. the busyness.
Yeah, they don't want to be around the sailors and dock workers, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I like it. Then maybe this is also the place where you can get yourself in trouble.
So that's definitely making it into the tabletop RPG then.
Yeah. I think it should have also a nice fortress, like sitting at the river mouth is like a perfect place to put that thing. So, yeah. Hey, Lena, quick recap. We're looking at points of interest at the map and kind of like looking for interesting stuff, like this very broad brainstorming, like finding ideas, just riffing a bit and seeing what we come up with.
Yeah, I see a lot of new nodes have been added
yeah, it's
to the map
chaos.
from the last time I've seen it.
Yeah, I need to at some point write these things down already, but yeah. Right. So yeah, I think this is really interesting. So we kind of like these two towns now stand in a kind of relationship to each other, which I think is really interesting. Okay. Yeah. So and Elonat. So maybe quick like backtrack into the history. When the age of resettlement happened, that's roughly 1,000 years ago. They were looking like they came out of. Let me quickly fetch a map. They came out of Inoria up here, and then traveled down the coast, and were kind of like looking for places to stay. And this whole region was very like charted and everything, so like not many boats like went in and like looked around. Essentially, it was mountainous, it was broken apart, and the landscape was rather rough. But they knew about Muru, or at least this area, and so some of them like searched for the river mouth and then found it. And then that's why originally a bunch of settlers landed there. And that was one of the closest places to settle to, because of course from Inoria they went into all of the Atlas. But this was everybody who essentially went anywhere in like the southern part of the Atlas, which is kind of a big bulk. Almost everybody first went through Elonat, and many were there and were like, okay, why leave though? And so I think there was a time where this was a really, really significant part also to just the culture of the whole, of all of humanity essentially, because that was like such a well-known place. And then of course the Atlas got resettled, and it wasn't that it became less important, but all the other places became important, so it became just one of many places. But from that time, I think it still has like a lot of, like they were early with the infrastructure, like bringing everything back to where it was. And so I think there's a lot of history here in this region, in the hard duty of like people who landed there, heroes who like got their start here and then went into the country and all this kind of stuff. And so I think there should be like, they were during the Age of Honor, and then also to a degree during the Age of Imperials quite wealthy. So I think they should have built a lot. And then today they have this tradition where the aristocracy builds nice buildings and then makes them publicly available, and essentially just shut them down every now and then when they want to be there. But they have many places, so they they don't care.
If they're the oldest since if they're the second oldest after Inoria, they should be the ones closest to the old technology, right?
I'm not sure about that, but yeah, maybe. So I think so. They lost access to many significant resources, and a lot of technology was either no longer reproducible because of that, or because the people who had the technology were killed in the year zero, or knew how to deal with the technology who were killed in the year
But
zero.
could they like architecturally and aesthetically speaking express nostalgia for the old technology?
I think more so for the old architecture than the old technology.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's there's an architecture style that came to be in the it's an architecture style that came to be that is called the deletion style. Let me quickly. So they had very rounded out city plans like this, and had in general quite like their kind of signature houses were like rounded like so, and with their sole trees in the middle to kind of protect them against umbrals. And so maybe they could have brought some of that with them. They also they have a lot of verticality in their buildings, but the thing is that this was really like a Valano Inoria thing, and the culture that they had before was quite heavily influenced by the Kaiser mandate, and they are like trying to not like be the Kaiser mandate or have anything to do with it, because that looks like
Okay.
So that was to the time when the Atlas Empire covered the entire Atlas, and so it looked really it was a bit grim and like brutalist in a way, you know. So like mathematically logical, and not aesthetically pleasing.
My kind of architecture then. Form over function. Function over form.
Yes. So yeah. So I think these clashes are there. To be honest, we might and we should go away from this. So we need to still develop the architecture style for Norris, but I think there's going to be like when I originally imagined Noros overall, I had a lot of like I had it was a very fairy tale-ish place in the sense that it, like what I had in mind for it was a lot of like what I remember from like Grimm's fairy tales. Very, I don't know how to put this. There's a certain like it clears out a lot of characters. The world doesn't talk a lot about the like the masses, and it's much more about individual characters trying to do heroic stuff in a world that is filled with all sorts of anomalous things that we didn't know about until we meet it. So it's like, oh shit, there's a dragon. That's interesting. And we just happened to stumble across this, and like nobody knew that there was one, or maybe one person, or whatever. And so it's one of these things where I'm trying to preserve a little bit of that mystery, even though, of course, if it was one of the earliest populated regions, there would always it would tend to be quite well discovered. But yeah, I think that's, to me, and at least in my mind, also seeps through into the architecture, where I'm kind of imagining at least some like Tudor architecture and these sorts of things. in some of these regions, like lots of dark wood. But then, of course, like what intrigues me is to take this architecture, which is a bit closer to like European architecture, and then have that in this area, which is like full of like palm trees and subtropical thickets and all this kind of stuff. So that to me seems like a really interesting contrast. I think we could probably pull some reference material from like colonial architecture, but then colonial architecture isn't exactly medieval, like late medieval Renaissance architecture. So yeah. Anyways, sorry for the rant. Took 5 detours. But, yeah. We left off somewhere. Yeah, maybe whilst we're on the topic of economics, I think important bits is going to be this area here, because this, I think, is going to be wood production. Like it's not too deep in the jungle that it's dangerous or anything, or at least not as dangerous. But then there's Woodtown, which like kind of where all the wood from these rivers here is like they drive down with barges and they offload this wood, and then here you have like sawmills, and woodworkers.
And all of this wood is going for construction of towns, airships, and ships.
Yeah, and furniture and exports to all sorts of places, So all sorts. Wood. And kind of what I had in my mind for these like villages here across the rivers is that they're a little bit like, it feels a little bit like, have you seen Apocalypse Now?
Wow, long time ago.
The group of people takes a ship up this river deep into Vietnam, Laos, and they essentially they drive for a very long time up this river and like get ever deeper away from civilization as they know it, and so I think that's a bit of the vibe, the further you go upriver, the more you get like these like hot summer, sweaty, jungly, high humidity, like little wooden shack towns that are like feel more and more like in the nowhere, and you like disappear, like slowly civilization is kind of like drained from your root, until eventually, exactly, until eventually you're like somewhere in the absolute nowhere,
yeah, so these like backwater villages where people come running with fruit they picked from the jungle to offer the sailors in return for whiskey or something.
Yeah, something like that, exactly. So like really far out where it's they are surprised to see you and you are like, where am I? And so it's like, and I mean it's a backwater because like you cannot get through here essentially. It's the end. And so I think this is why it's kind of interesting that at the end of one of these rivers that are just like that is a mage order. But then the Order of the Immortal Spring is kind of like the epitome of that. It's like people are like talk in hushed tones about the mountain spring and that it actually exists somewhere at the end of one of these rivers, but they don't even know about this one, and it's even further down in the jungle. So this one is going to be really, really interesting. I don't know if we should print that on the maps, I don't know if people should know about it, because there's some things about it. I don't even know if I want to say those on stream. Like, Okay, I won't, but like, I don't know. Stuff is going down. Okay, we'll talk about it at some other point. Yeah. They're like stories. They're stories from the Age of Honor of like, one thing that I had in mind was like a king who had a son who was dying of a strange illness, and then found the mages there in this very, 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 very remote place somehow after going through a bunch of trials, and then went through some more trials and stuff, and then came back and his son was alive, but he was a changed man or something like that. And so like that, Yeah, so fun stuff, and so I think this wood town area is going to be really cool for exploring, and also for like shady stuff, and people, like there's a bunch of stuff comes to mind. Also a bit like it to me, it also feels a bit like have you guys seen The Revenant?
Yeah.
So they're on the ass end of the world, somewhere in the absolute nowhere, like collecting fucking hides and stuff, and being attacked by aliens, and then trying to make their way back, and taking absolute ages to do so until they reach any kind of civilization. And when they reach it, it's like a village, and so I think that's kind of it. It's not with like the cold and the tundra and all this kind of stuff, but with jungle. So I think that's going to be fun stuff, and like we can introduce all sorts of creatures and diseases and weird things that you have to be careful with,
So like the Night's Watch, but instead of White Walkers, mosquitoes.
Yeah, bro. I'm out. Let me plus creatures plus yeah, I think
Can we have like weird shit like giant caterpillars or
yeah, we do. And hold on, let me also say there's I think there should be caves here already. I think caves are mostly a thing that happen in this area here. Oh, hold on, I'm drawing this too far. Like this area here, I think is cave territory. I'll get to that in a sec, but I think there should be like the cave, like there should be creatures which like live in cave networks as well as the jungle, who have like kind of like almost like a circadian rhythm that's like sometimes I'm in a cave, sometimes I'm outside the cave, or in the winter I'm in a cave, or in the summer I'm in a cave, or whatever. And so maybe you can only go there during particular seasons, because if you're there in winter, or in summer, like they're gonna be out, they're gonna be out and about, and gotta be careful, can't travel. So I don't know. I think that would be kind of cool, because then you can like push the players into the uncomfortable season where they have to like sneak around, and be careful of the creatures.
these orders deep in the jungle? I mean, how do they get by?
They're self-sustaining. They chill on a mountain somewhere, and have their like fields like on like these different, when you have these different levels in the mountains that you cut into, and then you have
like the terraced fields like the Inca.
Exactly, for example. Yeah. So a bit like that. So they're very cut off. The only thing that I was imagining is that if you would know where they are, and you could theoretically navigate these mountains, that you could find them, and that you can't land there, that they would have like a landing platform for walk riders and stuff. So that kind of tickles the Star Wars itch in me a bit. Like have a landing platform or two, or one-man fighters. So.
Can airships land there? Because I mean, they have to go around the mountain range, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could, if you would know, like if you would have a really good map of the region, which I think would be incredibly rare and hard to get, you could theoretically, if you're really skilled and the weather's good and the winds okay, you could like get through these mountains, through the valleys, you know, if you know at which height to travel, which is probably going to be pretty high, like above 1,250 or so. And then you could potentially find this order, and then you couldn't, like, there's not a dock or something, but you can just throw out an anchor and then, like, take a, then you take a ladder or something, essentially. Yeah. So, I think you could get there. Like, it would be possible. Yeah. Okay, so. Also, I think in this place there should be very little creatures, and if you run across them, they're like mean, but just about dangerous, you know, like not very intimidating. So you could like bonk them relatively easily.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have like ridiculously fearsome monsters everywhere in the Atlas, right? There has to be some.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing of that region, really. Like the really scary shit is kind of a thing for that region. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's that. I don't know. Like I'm sensing there's some opportunities for, let's say, refugees of certain regimes or so to hide in these places, you know, and be just some nobody, and you have to kind of like detective work your way through this region to find the place and the person with their like alternate names who you want to get at, and then once you find them, you find out a bunch of stuff, and then it leads you like deep into the heart of the jungle to find this place, you know. This would be kind of, I could feel that, you know, I could see that. Yeah. All right, what do you guys want to talk about? Want to talk about, you know, pirates or border troubles, or like?
Well, you know, you've shared a lot about the chillness and how beautiful this country is, but it has the duke. It's flanked by the dukedoms, yeah.
Yeah.
So wild, lawless, to the southeast. What's on the west northwest?
Yeah, so here, this is Vallano. Vallano. Vallano is a. Wait, hold on. Can I? Let me quickly fetch the map again. Better to explain with the full thing. You have Inoria and you have Vallano, and you have these fjords here, but these are technically the two entities which are somewhat close, but it is technically a third, which is the Steinhansa, and the Steinhansa is a kind of a trade organization that has a lot of influence over the coast.
I thought I saw them south of Moru, in fact.
Yes. Yeah, that's like they have territories here.
Yeah.
And here and here.
Okay.
So they have quite a bit of coastline, and including nowhere else do they have sovereign land but in the dukedoms. But they effectively control like Stein and Betham. And the issue that this poses is that they don't always really play by the rules, and that they give the government of Vallano some trouble also when Vallano government tries to control them or contain them. And
So they're a
because-
law up unto themselves in Valano.
Yes. And they control, like, they have a lot of sway over how trade is done on this coast. And that's a bit of a problem for Moru because they can make good margins on exports, but only if they get to export. And so there have been some, like, Moru doesn't want to give sovereign land, right? Like they are very, very
Protected.
careful to not give away, and so they've been in trouble with the Steinhanser before, and they don't like each other very much. And it's not that there's like all-out war or anything, but if they run into each other, you just never really know what's going to happen,
So they have the Steinhanser to the left and to the right, and then they have pirates in the bay.
Well, yeah, so the pirates are kind of resulting from the tensions because you always have some people, because the Steinhanser and Moru have this tension going on, there are always some shippers who impersonate and fly one of the two flags and then do whatever they want, essentially under a false name. And then that causes tensions and like deep diplomatic tensions, and then they have to be cleared out, and sometimes the ship can be found, and it's sometimes not. And so there's a lot of that going on, and then because everybody expects that people doing this sort of things are actually pirates, sometimes the Steinhanser themselves does this sort of thing, right, where they essentially are like opportunist pirates, like sometimes when the wind's right and you so happen to know what's in the bow of that particular ship, and like ships might disappear and stuff like that, and there's like stories about the fun creatures which are living in this particular part of the sea, and so like all of this is kind of like swirling together to like there's a not unconsiderable rate of disappearances, and of people coming back in like very much diminished ships, and so it's not always clear who did that, even if you were the ones who met them, and then nobody believes you anyways, so, and it's a bit of a difficult reason. So we can say pirates, but it's not that simple, it's not like there's a pirate captain and he's like dashing up and down the coast and making problems for everybody, or so.
Got it.
Yeah. It's a wicked problem.
From an existential point of view, so Moru is like this great country. Yeah? It's got resources. It's a breadbasket for the region. It's got wood, but the neighboring kingdoms aren't as good, and generally what happens is if the grass is greener on the other side, I want it, right? So what do they do to protect themselves?
Yeah. So Moru has two big initiatives, which is the Navy and the border. So the Navy is something that they sucked at for a very long time until they got, when they gained their independence, they didn't have a Navy essentially because all the ships were Immortal Kingdom ships, and they like spent their time bashing each other's head in. And then the Steinhanser swooped in to take charge of some of the regions, like make use of the power vacuum, and Moru kind of held on for like dear life to like not lose parts of the coast to the Hansa. And they kind of sort of managed, and it was really close, and they got into some trouble, and they only survived because the Valano government backed them. So the government of Valano was like, you guys also having problems with these guys, like, yeah, let's, and so they put diplomatic pressure on the Steinhanser to like give it a rest.
Back off, yeah.
Yeah, and that gave Moru the space that they needed to build a basic like fleet. And so that has been going on, and they have lots of wood from here. So they've got good craftsmen, and they got the resources and the people to do it. And so their problem has been volume, but they've been ramping up over the last couple decades. And by now they have a good fleet. And they also have some airships. And Valano and they enjoy good diplomatic ties. And so the Steinhansa is like if they get, like, it's not off the table that they are going to get into trouble down the line. But if it happens, then it's going to be very costly for both sides. And so it's like, do we need to do this? I don't know. Yeah.
Mutually assured destruction.
Kind of, yeah. Well, yeah. It's like whoever comes out on top has some wounds to lick, So
yeah.
And so this is the Navy project, and the Navy project, like, there's an active patrol screen around this place, right? And then there would sometimes be like shipments that are high value goods, sometimes create convoys which are protected by Navy ships. So then these are like insured by the crown, and they go wherever they need to go, often exporting to Enoria because they're like the financially strongest like trading partner. And then there's like trolls up here, because this, to my mind, would be like I was thinking a bit about this, and I'm not entirely settled, but like I think there should be like lots of tiny islands, lots of secret bays in all of this region here, which are like used by all sorts of people, smugglers, pirates, Steinhansa, even the navy of Moru itself, and because here the coastline, right? There's only one coastline, right? And you can essentially, when you send a patrol, you can just drive down the coastline and check it out. But here it's like full of islands and full of like here, like you really get into like this whole network of like potential ways that people could like outmaneuver you and all this kind of stuff. So it becomes really difficult to chase down people and all this. And so this is the second focus of the Navy, is to like patrol here quite frequently and make sure that nothing goes down that's too funky. And so they have a good presence in Felswater, and they have a by now somewhat abandoned military position in Gatland, but Gatburg also has good town defenses and stuff. But yeah, so nothing has been really going on here, but yeah.
I just recognize the Blossom Compass is there.
Yeah.
Our stage channel is the Blossom Compass Plaza, so.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, they've been chilling, It's not like because there's like pirates nearby that they are like actively fearing for a raid or something, but it's like if things change in the future, it might not be as chill anymore. So. And
what's happening on Yavland? Is that you say? Yeah, so nobody knows what's on it.
Yeah.
And so the question was answered.
I thought Yavland could be, other than Gatland, which enjoys quite a few smaller villages, like they have Wood Bay Port, they have Costland Ferry, they have Gatland up here. On Yavland, you maybe have like one little tiny like hub, and then the island is very barren and very like jagged, and so nobody wants it.
Okay.
And
it's unexplored then.
Yeah, I mean, it's surely at some point somebody went over it and tried to draw a map, but how do you draw a map of something that has no roads and towns? And like you say, here's a forest and here's a field, and then you're like, okay, cool. Oh yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a map of it at some point, but I'm not sure how much it's going to be on.
Territorially, for any kind of naval power, it's quite a significant location.
That's true.
It'd be a very good staging area for any kind of naval activity.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe the town that should be there could be a fortress.
I'm thinking somewhere like Ascension Island in the Atlantic, which has nothing on it except for one military base.
I think that could be interesting.
And I think this island should have like some epic lighthouse on the northern side of it.
Yeah.
That would be a good place for it, actually, wouldn't it? Because you're covering that entire bay.
What I just realized is I forgot this myself, but the border of Moru goes like this, so this is still Moru. So the border goes like this and then continues like so.
Yeah.
Which means
So that island, isn't owned by it.
Yeah, it would be Valano which owns it.
Yeah.
Which means it could be really interesting because if Valano owns it, it means that the Steinhansa might have more influence on it. Which means the staging area might actually be Steinhansa's staging area. That could be really interesting because that would create a projection of power for them.
Yeah,
you know?
Foreign naval power directly off.
Like they would be able to threaten. Exactly, they would be able to threaten, right? Like so. I think that could be really interesting. That sparks ideas, man. Like we could have, I could see like infiltration missions into the Steinhansa fortress and stuff like that, you know. That would be really fun.
Yeah.
Steinhansa.
Yeah, there could be a level of intrigue that it's not officially Steinhansa, but they've bought off the governor or something. Or
Yeah. Perhaps technically Valano.
Valano officially, but Steinhansa pull the strings. Yeah.
This could also put pressure on Felswater to be Moru's counterpoint, you know. Moru, important harbor, important military harbor.
Yeah, they need to have a garrison there or something. The first reaction force. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if you would be to patrol this cluster of this region, you would probably, you would need a place to go from, and so I think Felswater is probably the right one.
Guys, I'm gonna have to leave. I'm already 20 minutes over schedule, but I really enjoyed this. It's a pleasure to hear you talk about all of this and the depth. My God, when you pulled up the architecture of the different kingdoms.
It's gonna be fun. I mean, I'm really looking forward to like the architecture and fashion development for this region. I think it's gonna be some really splendid things.
With our legendary lady of the thread.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a great evening. It's 10:10 where I'm at, so time for me to go.
Have a good evening, Clive.
Bye.
Bye. Where were we? Yeah. So I think the tension up here in this region, like we could kind of work through it. I think there's more ways that we can kind of ratchet it up, create a kind of like a Cold War type scenario. Like I could see like two ways that this could be really fun, like conflict wise is one would be it's a kind of like a stalemate Cold War thing. Everybody's trying to not like set off one of the two parties. Or we have like all these like we have this chaos, you know, like the different agents that pretend to be other agents and all this kind of stuff. And whenever you go into these waters, you don't know if you're gonna come out the other end as you planned and all this kind of stuff. And like shady stuff going on, people to pretend to be of one particular side, and then you don't know if you can, like, it's like, can you trust anybody, you know? Like, as soon as you go onto the water, like this whole region here, it's like, can you trust? Yeah.
Looking at some historical context, it could potentially be the kind of place where countries would hire privateers to fight a sort of proxy action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is what led to a lot of the rise of pirates in the Caribbean back in 1700.
Yeah. I think that's also the thing. Like, if there are privateers potentially on both sides, then there's gonna be a lot of chaos. Yeah, I'm just gonna. I think, yeah, privateers is another way to look at the pirate problem. I'll say privateers, opportunists. Rook militaries. Correct? No. Oh no. Yeah, fun stuff. Fun stuff. I gotta say, it's gonna be good. I'm looking forward to that. Those shenanigans. It's also there's like that's something worth knowing is that there's quite a difference in temperature, like climate-wise, between the coast and then the middle of the country and eventually the jungles, because the jungles are subtropic. There's a lot of, like, on the right day, there's a lot of warm winds coming down here from Tarina, and you get very warm days here in summer. You can get really warm days, and at the same time can get really cold winters down here, because there's the pole is down there, not too far, and the way that the major water stream rotates is like so. Like, it's coming up from the poles, essentially, like this, which means that you get very. You don't get the water streams themselves don't carry tropical storms or anything. It's quite chill like that, but it's gonna get cold in the winter, really, really cold. So I think they're gonna have some real winters here on this area, even though they're like a bit up. Like, if you compare this to, for example, where the dynasty is at, it should be much warmer than it actually is because of the water. So, yeah. Anyways, little detour. Right, so this area. So I mean, conflict-wise, the interesting part is lower shore reach, which is the place here that I boxed in. That's the place where people from the no man's land are trying to get in, either because they traveled from other places because they heard of Meru and they were like, that sounds really good, let's go. Or because they needed to, because it sucks where they're at. But I think the problem is that you have, because this is the no man's land is unpoliced. It's kind of like a type of anarchy. It feels a bit like it has nothing to do with any desert or anything, but to me, like what comes to mind is like somewhere in the depth of the forest, there is like a little Mos Eisley, you know, like you will find the scum of the no man's land in there, and they'll be all like playing by their own rules and you know, having duels every other day on the main street and shit like that, you know. And that's where you like find smugglers and people who are like dealing with shady privileged information, and all of them spies who are trying to get at the Moreau succession, and like you know, all sorts of people who have let's say unofficial business. So I think that probably the hub for that would be this. There's a town, I haven't given it a name yet. I'm just gonna call it Gangster Town. It's not gonna stick, I promise. Gangster Town. And so I think that's kind of like it's kind of like Tortuga, you know. Very rowdy, but the place where you do like the really important unofficial business is like a little bit inside the country and really in the middle of the forest. It's like the spy town, I'll call it spy town, and that's probably like the pretty like they hardly can get more dangerous. And then in between there's like camps of bandits which prey on the people who travel down Dead Man's Street, and then to protect, like Moru's challenge is essentially like they can take on people. It's not necessarily a problem, and the cultural assimilation is not a problem. They speak the same language. They have been part of the Immortal Kingdom for a long time. It's it's essentially like people moving from, I don't know, from Boston to New York, you know, or trying to. Like culture-wise, it's not that far. So none of that gives anybody any grief or whatsoever. The issue is like figuring out who is like a genuine immigrant and who is like a little spy or person acting for the mafia or person like, you know, ready to like pickpocket and stuff. And so it's giving people a lot of trouble because Moru kind of works on their high trust nature, right? Like leaving doors unlocked, and everybody is like has a good understanding. People know each other, and all these sort of things. So you have like a lot of people coming in here who often cannot make out any identity, and you don't know who they are, and you're like struggling to judge their character and all this kind of stuff. And so like the one thing that they need to know for sure is have some sort of system for them to like figure out that at least the very obvious contenders, like the gangster bosses, etc., stay out. And so they have like along the river patrols. They have like gates up here at that bridge and these sorts of things. And it becomes quite difficult. Like this is essentially where, like, I would say like 70% of the military is at. Yeah. So and this means that also some places like this yet to be named town would have like military camps, which also I think there would be Shiro mages. So these are the ones that are very like the empathetic, very like some people who don't know a lot about them think that they read people's minds, which is not technically true. But they have a very good understanding of Greathead's, Socratine questioning and these sorts of things. And so they are sometimes employed to find out like the people who cannot produce papers from like a legitimate province, are often questioned, etc., etc., and even sometimes people who seem to be legit, etc., are questioned, and essentially they try their best to figure out if they can find some evidence. And yeah, it's a very rough situation, because you sometimes run the risk of turning somebody away who was supposed to be allowed in, and the other way around, and then you let somebody in who is causing chaos behind the border. And it's an imperfect system, and it kind of challenges the culture of how like Muru works. And so as a result, I think there's not just, is it so that there's like this tension coming in from the border where you have to be super, super careful, but you to do like not cross and get yourself in trouble. But also you have to somehow, the stream of new people that comes in creates a new texture. People in, for example, here, right, in let's say this place would know each other for a very long time, and they know the people who know the people who know the people, etc. And then so here there's lots of new people coming in, and that kind of like messes with the age-old way of verifying and understanding who's who. And so there's like a lot of new people, and it's they just don't know how to deal with it. And yeah, so in all of this kind of, I think that just creates like a lot of turbulence, lots of chaos. And I think this is going to be part of the challenge. And then of course the fact that the military is everywhere is also going to be like a vibe, let's say. Yeah. So that's the border region. I don't know. Like I feel there's more stuff that we can do to make it more interesting also behind the border. I feel that developing particular quote unquote mafia organizations could be really interesting. And then I think the convoys that go in and out could be like interesting topics. Yeah. And then I mean here is like trade, a lot of trade goes through Tradegate. Because they go in like big convoys, then have like military escorts and like Vox flying in the sky and all this kind of stuff, because they're like scared shitless of all the bandits and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, it has some seems like a place to do some adventures that are a little less bright-hearted than some of the other ones we could be doing. You'd find a very interesting group of characters in that area.
I think it's also a place for like mixed moralities.
Yeah.
Like mixed moralities and characters with regret. And it's like a tough place, So I think it chips away at people. Like being too close to it. I think if you live in Terra, you don't necessarily like. By the way, Terra has an airship academy. That's pretty well known, and an airport, which is like you cannot find an airport essentially anywhere here except Rotland on the other side of the border. So kind of like high-techy tech. Yeah. I don't know. I'm still feeling there's more potential in here. I'm not really sure where it's at, but yeah.
I mean, having a lot of military present there makes me think of a sort of peacekeeping group. But no matter how many military you put into it, there's always going to be more people who aren't military than are.
Yeah.
So, group of peacekeepers stuck in the middle of a fairly hostile area, that's gives potential for its own sort of chaos to arise there, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also there are like in certain distances, like 1 to 2 hour ride distances, are like forts on this road, which are like military hubs, for the like forward hubs for the military, where they protect this road, and I think this could be interesting for, you know, like if you are in one of these in one of these outposts, that's probably like one of the more dangerous places that you could be, because you're like literally in the middle of the shit, you know. And so you have like I'm imagining them a little bit like these Roman little wooden palisade type mini castles that I forgot the proper name for it, chilling in like the middle of the forest and stuff, being surrounded by Germanic tribes, you know. It's kind of the thing, and you're like sitting there in the middle going like, okay, when are we relieved, you know. So yeah, I think that would be really interesting, and I mean, I have a feeling that maybe this takes us a bit into the passive duty, but that the helds and the so the helds and the military are separate things. I'll get into that later, but that they take a lot of inspiration from the Age of Honor, where the military was essentially there to fight and the helds were there to fight the beasts, and there wasn't really much like fighting amongst humans, due to a bunch of cultural factors and stuff that happened at the year zero, and environmental pressures, etc., etc. And so I think there would probably be a lot of like shape, language, and these sorts of things, like returning from that time into the way that the military is now, and also what the culture of the military is, like how they see themselves. So I think they could genuinely be like feel more like UN peacekeeping force type people, you know, rather than like, okay, no, I don't know much about the UN peacekeepers, but like,
No, I get where you're going with it.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know, I need to think a bit about it. Little side note, these two places here are the Order of the Fox. The Shore Fox and the Forest Fox. I have some ideas where they're actually gonna, you know, some story stuff for that, but at some point, do you guys know what do you call it? A Tiny Glade?
Yes. I mean, I haven't played it, but the trailers look so cool.
Yeah.
And I want to play it, but I'm so broke.
Last summer when it came out, I got it and I like digged around with it a bit, and I built this little thing which is kind of like a prototype for the Order of the Forest Fox. And so I don't know, like it's probably going to change a lot once we figured out the architecture style, but it's like a little bit of an idea. Yeah, I was thinking that the Order of the Fox was like one of the most open orders that there are, because usually the orders in the area are like a bit secretive, you know. Like they have their own stuff going on, and if you want to deal with them, you have to like be trusted, and therefore you have to do a bunch of crazy stuff or whatever. But the Order of the Fox is very like welcoming, and so I thought it would be a cool it would be a cool thing if they would like hardly have any like borders around them, like most orders with like castle walls and stuff, and be much more like kind of open and dispersed across like a little bit in the forest, you know, and yeah, and of course need to be red because fox.
It looks really cute.
Yeah, it's. I mean, anything in Tiny Glade looks really cute.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta go too. But thank you for
No
letting
worries.
me hang. It was really
No
fun.
worries.
And have
Cool.
a good evening.
Yep. Toodaloo.
Bye.
Yeah. Any whoozle. I don't know. Like I think these could be kind of like hubs as well, you know, at least, or like
Yeah.
in general also, you know, just places where you can recharge, meet some interesting people, talk some philosophies, like heal your stress points, you know, just get on from there. No. I mean, the last big thing that I think is worth talking about for now, like maybe there's more to come, but up here, I was thinking that there would be kind of like regions for, there would be cave regions. So there's the Hell's HQ should, I think, be in the Passiva duty. And I think probably because it sounds suspiciously like possible, and it kind of in my mind, it's like fits together somewhat nicely. But the idea is that, do you know about the Hells, Ben?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Like in few words, they were once the guys in the Age of Resettlement who fought the beasts which covered the land to make it habitable for humans, and so they were quite respected, and there was a time where like Moru was all about that. It was the Age of Honor essentially, where these hells like traveled the land and made it habitable, and then there was like lots of stories about them and all these sorts of things. And then when the Immortal Kingdom took over Moru, the hell tradition was kind of died out. And now that they have the independence again, they have been technically revived, but realized that most of the beasts are gone by now. And whilst you have like the beasts are like a very particular type of beast, right? They're kind of they're not an animal, right? Like they're something else. And so that means really that they are now that they looked for like a new purpose. And that's when they started to explore the hauntings and essentially put it into their heads that they should figure out how to like kill demons in the caves.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right, natural progression. And so having a terrible time of it, because going into the haunting and getting in trouble there is bad for a couple of reasons. One, and probably the most pressing one, is if you die, the chances are that if you die to a demon and the demon's not killed after, it might gobble up your soul. Then that's your ticket to become like a soul tree and rise up to the sky. That's gone. That's not happening. So it's like the fate worse than death. So you don't want to, don't want to push your ships forward and meet something you don't understand. But that's kind of what it's at. And you do all of that in like some very dark, claustrophobic environments that are not made for you to be there. So they have this whole like code of honor and all this sort of things that they have had from the Age of Heroes, but now it's kind of like breaking around the edges because it's such a grim environment. It's such a difficult task, and it seems also such an endless task. They're like trying to reclaim certain areas and keep the demonic away, but they're really experimenting and making a bunch of mistakes, which are costly in both lives and morale. And so it's a bit difficult, you know, like if they can figure out how to fight demons effectively and how to travel the haunting and do certain things, then perhaps they'll know things which, spoiler alert, might be plot relevant, but they don't know that yet, and it's really not great. And so meeting them is one thing. Like, I think there's a culture in that organization and a vibe that surrounds them that's a bit like Warhammer 40k-ish, in the sense that, like, you know,
it's a
fighting,
never-ending struggle.
Like, never-ending struggle. You're never ever gonna like defeat the Shadow Realm, you know, but you're there and like fighting it anyways because your doctrine dictates you must do so, you know. And so it's and then there's all these sagas and legends and around and all this kind of jazz. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of explore what the mental makeup of these people is like, and also like once they come out of this duty, like what they're left with, you know, of like, I could imagine that, for example, they would come out of the caves and after having completed their duty would not be able to like sleep indoors anymore and need to go under open skies and sleep there and stuff like that, or be afraid of the dark, generally speaking, or have like mental disorders, etc. Schizophrenic, like,
be very
stuff.
hard to reintegrate into society, having been on that edge for the whole time.
Having seen the stuff that's down there, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna be really. It's gonna be like it can be fascinating, but it can also be really tough. Like if you get to know the characters, it can be a bit tough, you know, because these are some very crazy stories, I think. And there's also potentially, like, I've been thinking a bit about this. In this region here in general, there's an underground civilization that I don't know if they're still called that, but they were once called the Mer, like this. And they gave the Immortal Kingdom a bunch of grief back in the age of Imperials. But I'm not sure if they're still around. But if they are, or if they aren't, you might be able to travel a bit beyond the borders of Maru, underground, you know, and either meet the people there or discover like these lost cave networks with like empty towns and find all sorts of like weird shit, you know, and discover more about the nature of the haunting and the history of the place. And I think like the one or the other mystery might be hidden there. So I think that's going to be fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that can be taken from this area that will really build on what you can do in the world. It's got so many options for really going to different places and building different stories. Yeah.
And I mean, this so far is just the regions. I think when we get into how the mage chapter works, so there are multiple mage orders, and then they together, like, okay, there's open and there's closed orders. Open orders are orders that are like your hospital or whatever. You go and then there's a mage who treats your wounds, right? But then there are also closed orders, which are more secretive, and they're like, they have these skills and more, and they do like research and go about their own needs, whatever. And they're a bit like a monastery, like they're self-sustaining. And so they don't need anybody. That's kind of like a powerful, like multiple of these closed orders form the chapter of the Mist Veil. There's like a handful of chapters in the halls of Soul Atlas, and they form like the Radiant Mage associations. And so like that is going to be a very, how to say, like I think a very interesting piece to discover what they're like, you know, what this culture is like, what the chapters like, what they concern themselves with, you know. and also what the Immortal Spring is all about. You know, like the tease, but like, yeah. And then Elunat, like the whole the different houses, house plan anima, the a bit strange way that the politics work in this country and stuff that we didn't really get into it. Also going to be something. And then what I also would really like is an airship map, because you can, like, certain routes are really good to travel. Like flat, you can get there with like low prices and can expect favorable winds, whilst in other areas it might be really difficult. So it might be really cool to kind of create like routes and just to get an understanding of the region in terms of like where you can travel and with what speed, and so it's a bit like Scotland Yard, playing Scotland Yard, where can you find the next underground station, and then you figure out how to get there quickly. So yeah, I think that will be fun stuff. Pretty much it. But I also think that in the end, Maru is probably going to be one of the more, like, as I mentioned before, like fairy tale. Like, I think it can be in a good way, like fairy tale vanilla regions is like one of this anchor region that you understand really well. It's also kind of tranquil and all that. So I think that's going to be fun. It's also going to be fun to see that in the card game, to be honest. Like, it's going to be some unusual squads. Yeah. All right then. Should we call it a day?
Yes, I think we have covered a lot there. There's a lot of stuff that is going to be fascinating for people to watch back.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the region expansion when it drops, but it's going to be it's not going to be a couple months, probably going to be about a year till it comes out, But, yeah.
Definitely something to look forward to.
Yeah, me too.
So, yeah.
Cool then.
Okay.
All right. Then I would say let's close it up.
Yeah, let's move it.